I said that I'm gonna build a backpack and I'm gonna take you along for the entire journey, and we're gonna build it in public. And I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how long it's gonna take. I have no idea what the hell's gonna happen. Let's go. And then we did it, and the community was very responsive. And I literally built this bag in public, step by step, from the first design concepts to the development.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Masters of Crowdfunding podcast. Today we have the great pleasure of having Aaron Radcliffe. He is the creator of Nomads Nation, a media brand that performs everyday carry and gear reviews. And he's the creator of Fyro. As of this recording, we are at $374,000 raised for the T22 Backpack. Aaron, welcome to the podcast. Can you just tell everyone a little bit more about what the T22 Backpack is?
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for that intro. So T22 Backpack, after reviewing 400 plus backpacks on my YouTube channel, I wanted to take the challenge of making my own, and the T22 was sort of my, way of making a bag that wasn't just a bag, but was kind of like a command center, right? It's designed to be the ultimate work bag that can also double as a pretty awesome travel companion. So that was sort of the gist behind the thinking of it, was just making something that was a little bit different for the market, a little more niche, that had sort of its positioning figured out beforehand, not trying to be an all-in-one sort of backpack, really just like honing in on the ultimate modern work bag for people who get shit done. And it seems to be resonating so far, and we're really stoked about it.
Yeah, it looks like, I'm looking at the charts, and the charts aren't always accurate, but it looks like you raised over $300,000 in the first 24 hours out of $374,000. And it's been live for about, I want to say 2.5, 3 weeks, right?
We're at about a little over 2 weeks. Yeah, so 2.5 weeks. And yeah, those first 30 hours, man, were a blur. I have no idea what happened. But it was crazy, and a rush to say the least. But it was obviously also very rewarding to see so quickly all of our hard work paying off. In a day. It was just it was very validating in that sense. So yeah, it was crazy, man.
So how did that feel when you launched and it raised like $300,000 in the first day? It's kind of wild.
Yeah. One thing that I'm going to want to talk about today is sort of community building and building in public. So that's what we've been doing with this bag, actually, is we've been building it in public over the course of 2 years. So I actually, for some backstory, I started Nomads Nation as a website about 10 years ago. I was focusing predominantly on travel blogging. That never really took off for me, so I was just trying different things. I was doing some marketing, freelance stuff, and then I was like, I'll try a YouTube channel, right? And through travel blogging, I got into, writing about backpacks, whether it's this travel bag or that travel bag, and I was like, I want to do this for YouTube, and I gave it a shot, and it really took off for us. So as to where I put 5 years into the website prior to this, and nothing really huge ever came from it. The YouTube channel ended up doing quite well, and then I just kept reviewing backpacks. And then after about 2 years into that journey, I was like, I was looking for a unique selling point for my channel, because there's other backpack reviewers out there, right? We review a lot of travel gear, but backpacks is really the bread and butter. And for those of you out there who might be like, you just focus on backpacks, that's so weird. And it does sound a bit strange, but there's two parts to that. One, there's the SEO component, right? A lot of people who are looking for backpacks are going on Google and on YouTube and typing in, X backpack review, whether it's the air travel backpack or whatever backpack it might be, right? But then there's actually a really fastly growing community of backpack nerds out there, right? Travel gear as well, whether it's wallets or slings, compression cubes, right? People who are just obsessed with efficiency, right? Efficiency in their everyday carry and in their travels, right? If you're a frequent traveler, I'm sure you travel, Kevin, right? And the more streamlined that you feel in that process, just that really resonates with a lot of people. And because of that, there's this blossoming carry community, right? So I was sort of diving into that community. And anyways, after a couple of years of reviewing backpacks, I decided, all right, I want a unique selling point for my channel. And I've always wanted to start my own backpack company. So, let's do what no other backpack reviewer is doing. And I announced to my community, which is smaller at that point in time. We only had about 15 or 20,000 subscribers. I said that I'm going to build a backpack and I'm going to take you along for the entire journey, and we're going to build it in public. And I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how long it's going to take. I have no idea what the hell's going to happen. Let's go. And then we did it, and the community was very responsive. And I literally built this bag in public, step by step, from the first design concept to the development to the parts of the bag that ended up sucking that we had to take 2 steps back to hope, take 3 steps forward with. And then it was a 2-year process. And then we launched obviously about 2.5 weeks ago. So you're asking about the first day. This is sort of my roundabout answer as to where it felt amazing because we weren't sure how the community was going to show up, right? I mean, people were very responsive and not responsive, right? I mean, some people were, talking a lot of shit the entire time, right? That's the beauty of it, right? You got to embrace that sort of controversy, right? I mean, because if people are talking about it, it's a good thing. So, but overall, we saw a lot of support, so we felt like it had the capacity to do very well, but we weren't sure. I mean, a couple hours before, I had a plan, for what if we only raised $5,000 and this thing fails totally, so I was ready for anything to happen, but thankfully, it turned out pretty well, and I have no credit to take in this because I didn't make this up, I'm just following tried and tested blueprints that have been sort of preached to by a lot of really big content creators out there. One of the biggest, Kevin, are you guys familiar, I'm sure, with Gary Vee?
Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of people like to talk smack about Gary Vee, where I can see that angle, but like at the end of the day, the dude is a savant when it comes to content creation. And I just apply the things that he says. And one thing that he said that kind of changed my professional life from a marketing perspective is don't create content, just document. And the reason for doing that is that when you document as opposed to creating, it takes away the complication of like, what am I going to create today? What is this piece of content that I have to manufacture that is going to, impress people or that I think will get? Don't do that. Just reduce those complications and just document. Make your life sort of a documentary in that sense. But then part 2 of that is that if you're documenting, people are actually following your journey. It's so much more of an authentic, intimate experience where they see your highs, they see your lows. When we were doing this building a backpack project, my initial idea, I got the backpack right here, was to have this part, and for those of you who are listening and not watching, the front panel of our backpack sort of has this little cutout, and this is supposed to be a sling that we wanted to detach from the back, right? So it's supposed to be like this 2-in-1 combination. And I realized after about 6 months into the journey, that was biting off way more than I could chew for my first backpack. It was way too complex, right? So I had to tell everybody in public 6 months into it, hey guys, we're pivoting. This is not working. So we're actually going to sort of combine these 2 products into one unique looking backpack, right? But that authenticity, that transparency made people into super fans because they didn't just see like, hey, I'm this brand who made this product. And they saw the entire process step by step. So again, just kind of going on to your initial question, which was, how do we feel? We felt great. And it was just so validating to know that this blueprint works, that the Gary Vee blueprint, that the things that I've heard other content creators talking about, the whole building in public concept, that if you do it right and you really build a following and build a community that, we had a lot of help from you guys with Launch Boom, Kevin, but also looking at the data, our community really showed up, right? So, it's just like, it's in that sense, on that first day, it was just so validating not validating for me personally, but to know that, hey, like this blueprint, there's something there. And it's going to be the central component of Fyro and our marketing and sort of community building moving forward because of that.
Yeah, we were just analyzing the data before this podcast, and hundreds of your backers and customers came from your community, came from your email list that we were able to track within LaunchKit, right? And the tracking links. So that's incredible. So I have so many questions about, building in public. I'll just list them out for you, and then we can go through them one at a time, Aaron.
Yeah.
One of them is like people stealing the idea, right? Like people are always scared of that. And I have my own thoughts on that, and actually for people listening, Alex Lieberman, who was the first guy that I interviewed on this podcast, first podcast published, he's the founder of Morning Brew, sold it for $75 million, and then was building in public a game of his as well that we were working on together with Launch Boom. I want to, how did you deal with that? One, Aaron, how do you think about that? Because you had all these backpack enthusiasts in your community, 50,000 subscribers at the time, right? And how many subscribers do you have now, Aaron?
No, we're at 50,000 now. So actually, one more thing that I can hopefully inspire people with is that we started this with a very small community. When we started, we only had 15 to 20,000 somewhere in there, which is, it's a decent following, but like, that's not huge. That's not raised $300,000 on Kickstarter big of a following. So we built it from 15,000 to where we just passed 50,000 last night, actually, over the course of 2 years. So we're not some huge company, like 50,000 subscribers on YouTube is nice, but we're no Mr. Beast. We're no, we're not any of these guys. 50,000 is still a pretty small community in like the YouTube sphere, right? For like bigger creators. So yeah, we're at 50,000 now.
Got it. Still though, 50,000 people who could steal your idea is what some founders are thinking, right? How do you think about that? Like, there's obviously a lot of benefits to building in public, and I'd love for you to talk about that as well. But how do you deal with that, drawback that I think is top of every creator's mind?
Of course. And I think it's a really great question. And obviously it's the biggest potential con when it comes to building in public. I can't speak for other niches too much because I don't know them as in depth as I know my backpack niche, right? So like, I think that sometimes there are probably ideas that need to be kept under wraps, right? Like it's just something groundbreaking that really needs to be patent pending. I think in that situation, I could understand it, but I'm sure there's still a legal, my understanding with patents though is like, it's not even about the patent needs to be solidified, but like as long as you prove that you had ownership of it before even the patent is solidified, you still have a legal claim to it. So I think that even by going public with an idea, you still have like domain over that idea. Granted, I'm not a lawyer, so please do not quote me on anything.
Yeah, well, I'm not a lawyer either, but there's also why there's provisional patents, right? Like I filed provisional patents where it's like a PDF of, 3D sketches, and then I point arrows to it and say what makes it different from everything else on the market. But yeah, please continue, Aaron.
But I would say that the biggest thing that made me realize no one's going to steal my idea or I don't really care is because people steal each other's ideas all the time. Like, I mean, we live in a world of just blatant theft. I mean, in my industry, so there's a camera bag company called Peak Design. They're quite big. You may have heard of them, Kevin. They're based out of California, San Francisco, and they have a sling and a messenger, and they've had them for years. Very, very distinct design language. You know a Peak Design sling when you see it. And Amazon, without any hesitation, ripped them off to such a degree that was borderline comical. I mean, it is a carbon copy of the Peak Design sling, and they sell it on Amazon for a quarter of the price, a fraction of the price, and there's nothing there's nothing Peak Design can do about it. I mean, like, sure, they can maybe try and lawyer up and try and take Amazon to court, but let's be honest about the reality of these situations. Like, people are going to steal your ideas anyway, and if they do steal your idea, it's probably a testament to how freaking good your idea is, so take it as a compliment. And if you've built a community and built it in public, and you've shown authority and ownership over this idea from the beginning, you're always going to have that street cred is where everyone knows that you had the idea first, So that's another advantage of building it in public is like, instead of like trying to build it behind the scenes for 2 years and then potentially somebody stealing your idea and going to market with it before you do, right? You have made it very clear that this is my idea. I'm publishing it. I have the ownership over it at this point. And then, that weakness becomes a strength in a lot of ways. Granted, I'm sure there's probably some patent pending thing. There's probably certain ideas that probably are best kept under wraps. But I think that sometimes, and I'm not trying to offend anybody here, but I do think it might come down to like ego a little bit more. People are like, oh, the world isn't ready. We have to show this because the world can't see it until we're ready for it. It's like, dude, take that ego away and just have some more fun with it because you're going to get ripped off if it's a good idea anyways. I look at the bag industry. All these great bag companies are being ripped off from manufacturers in China and Vietnam and AliExpress. I mean, the amount of products that I'm seeing just in my niche, that are ripped off on AliExpress. And then these companies will like take these products down. They'll talk to AliExpress. And then 1 week later, there's 30 new listings. You can't fight it. So just embrace it. It's going to happen and do what these other guys can't do. Have that transparency, right? Because they're hiding in a dark corner trying to rip your idea off. You can be out in public, building a community and turning that weakness into a strength. I don't know. That's my take, Kevin. Does that make sense or am I being naive here, though?
No, that totally makes sense. And I mean, if people listen to it and think that you're being naive, I feel like they're not getting it, to be honest. Like, I just want to highlight a couple of things there. Ownership of the idea first. The advantage of building in public is proof that you own the idea, first of all, and that you're the first, you're the leader in the space or that design, that product. And then second is now you have that following that's going to fight for you, right? When that happens to you from Amazon or whoever else. And if someone like Amazon rips you off, it's because you're successful already. It's because you've done tens of millions, probably $100+ million of revenue. Honestly, Peak Design has done, or else Amazon would not be motivated enough to copy that.
100%.
The fact that product creators think that just because they have an idea, someone's going to copy them, I think that is naive on its own. But if you create an innovative product and it shows traction, that's where, you know, and all the data when you sell on Amazon, by the way, is going to be all public. You can, you know, check out junglescout.com or Helium 10, etc. You go on there, you can see the sales volume of every single product per month and what revenue they make, and then look on Alibaba and see what the cost is, right? And then, so that's what Amazon's doing, and that's what everyone else is doing too. They just look at the delta and say, hey, is this product worth copying? But to think that someone's going to see your product on a landing page with 0 sales, or, you know, maybe even $1 million in sales, to say like it's worth their time to copy it to make $100,000 off of your idea, it's I think that is naive, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And like, yeah, I mean, like, if someone's gonna rip off your idea, they're gonna want to know it's gonna work, right? I mean, otherwise they'll make up their own idea, or they'll rip off an idea that is working. Yeah, you know. So I think that's a really good point across the board.
Good. So the other thing that I want to ask you about in building in public is, how do you determine what feedback to listen to? Because, I mean, you mentioned all the people that are naysayers as well, shit talkers, as you call them, like coming at you saying, hey, you know, this, you know, great idea, but this stuff all sucks, or whatever it is, whatever they say. Actually, give me an example of what the naysayers say to you when you started on the journey.
Oh, dude, my niche is a very passionate group of people, and very opinionated on our backpacks and what features we should have and the aesthetic that it should have. I would say that we tried to create something that has a very unique design language. So we chose a very bold aesthetic. And that would be the number one thing that a lot of people had a problem with, is just, you know, we paid homage to a traditional backpack, but also really catapulting it into the future. So I would say aesthetically, a lot of people were very outraged by our design. And, you know, just little things like, you know, dude, you know, I'll never have a backpack that doesn't do that. You know, I mean, there's a million things, right? Everybody has their preferences, whether it's with watches or diving gear or anything else. You know, if you're a hardcore nerd in something enough, you have opinions on how those products should be made, right? So in terms of handling feedback, first of all, I embraced it. I said, everybody, like, so we did like over the course of 2 years, like maybe 10 like big YouTube videos, like, hey, this is our 3-month update, right? Where I'm literally in the factory in Vietnam. I got my cell phone. I'm going to sewers over here and meetings up there. Like, I'm literally like building this like it's a documentary, right? And then at the end of every, you know, in 3 to 4 times in every video, I'm like, hey, what do you think about this lining? You know, let me know in the comments below, right? And then 3 minutes later, hey guys, which zipper do you think is better? Let me know in the comments below. You know, so first of all, it's about encouraging engagement, because people want to engage, but not a lot of people. Most people don't comment on things online, right? Like, really, you know, the trolls troll because they're just trolls, you know. But like, a lot of people want to engage, but they just need a little bit extra incentivization to do so. So I did as much calls to action as I could for comments, and you can see our last video had like 2,000 or 3,000 comments, I think, 2,000 comments, I think, almost. So people wanted to feel like they were a part of the process, which is great, right? So that's step one. Then you said, though, step two, how do you filter through that? And the truth is, it reminds me, it's like the Thomas Edison quote. He's like, if I would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? So people don't always know what they want, or at least they might think that they do, right? So that's just sort of going to depend on you and what your balance is, right? One thing that I would say is that I did was every suggestion that I got, like, I replied to, and I said, thank you so much. I think this is a really cool idea, you know, and even if I knew it wasn't going to be something that we could implement, I'd say, I'll talk to our development team about it, you know, or I'll put it on a list, you know, because it's less about like, hey, I'm going to use your idea, and more about, hey, you're a part of this community and you're somebody whose perspective I respect. And that, I think, is the most important part. And that kind of leads me also into the other part about this, which building in public is one aspect, but if you build in public but you're an asshole about it, no one's going to care, right? So really when it comes to community building, I think it's so important because, and even if you don't build in public, the takeaway of this conversation, I hope, isn't like you need to build in public. I actually think the bigger takeaway is you need to do whatever you can to build a community, because at the end of the day, that's what really distinguishes brands these days, right? Because we're living in a time and age where there's more commoditized products than ever, right? I mean, whether it's on Amazon or AliExpress, or Taobao out here in China, I mean, you can get products, for next to nothing. So, what really is distinguishing people and their ability to have followings from the get-go is building that community. So when it came to the comments, it was about just really respecting people and being like, hey, dude, this is a really cool idea, or that's really interesting. Or if I couldn't do it, explaining why, right? Like, I mean, and that educational process brought so many people like, oh, I had never thought about that. Like, dude, like just one little thing, like they like on a backpack for shoulder straps to stow away, right? So when you put it underneath the seat in front of you, there's like less dangle and shit flying all over the place, right? But the problem with that is that it actually can compromise comfort because you have to make thinner shoulder straps, you have to compromise the back panel. So there's an entire construction compromise there, right? So every time somebody would say that, like, I love that idea, I love stowable shoulder weight straps, here's why we can't do it, right? So it was about educating people and bringing them along and making them feel like they were learning and being a part of the process as much as they could.
Yeah, and good luck, Amazon, trying to explain to every one of Peak Design's customers why they made that design choice, right? And that's really,
Exactly.
like you said, that is what's going to differentiate your brand from all the other companies or copycats out there.
For sure, yeah. I mean, like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to double click into that. It's like you have to look, if you're a new creator or a new inventor or a new founder, you have to look at your strengths and what you are actually capable of doing and moving the needle on. And one thing that you can do is you can make content and reply to every single comment and make every single person in your community feel like they are gold, and like that's what I've done. I made a vow to myself when I started this building a backpack project that I would respond to every single comment, message, email, anybody that has anything, because I knew I had that in my power. I didn't have the power to raise $1 million, to build this product. I mean, maybe it's possible, right? But like, I knew that I had the power every single day to make connections. And in this sort of social media world where everyone's feeling more, polarized and tribalized, like it's and less connected, I think that you have that power as a brand owner and a creator to create connections on a daily basis. And that is something that really can compound over time. It might not feel like it day in and day out, but over time, it's a very powerful compounding effect.
Yeah, and by the way, Aaron, feel free to interject anytime. I mean, people hear enough of me talk. I mean, I'm on the podcast, but you're only on once or twice, so interject anytime, man.
And I also want to say, Kevin, I want to give Launchboom a shout out too, because that's one of the reasons why I worked with you guys. If not the biggest, right? There's plenty of Kickstarter agencies out there, but you guys have a business model that really spoke to me as to where it's providing value, right? And I'm not here to just like shill on you guys, right? We didn't talk about this. Just so you know, Kevin did not pay me $200 to say this, I promise. But I think that there is a movement happening where a lot of brands are realizing more and more that, in this loud social media environment where all these things are happening, people see 300 ads a day, I think is what like the current count is up to, right? So to make an impact, it's really providing that value. And it's, I love the way you guys were doing, the blog posts and the YouTube videos and now the podcast and Mark's book. I mean, the Launchboom book, I read that from front to back twice. And it felt like such a connection was made by that I was like, you guys are going to be my agency because of that. Now, this isn't me like, trying to make Launchboom, I'm not trying to promote you guys right now, but I'm just saying, like, I think that if you work with Launchboom, you may have also gone with them because of that, maybe subconsciously, right? Because it builds this sense of trust. So just sort of, the whole concept of it, creating content builds relationships, and building in public is a great way to make content. And as you're building those relationships, keep connecting with people equals, building a community, which really is, the separating factor. And you're seeing this across the board. I mean, it's why, companies are paying the Mr. Beasts and, all these guys millions of dollars to join their companies. Ridge just got Marquise Brown to be on the board of directors. God knows how much they're paying him to do that, because these are the people who have the attention, right? I mean, we're at a big shift in marketing now where it went from brands having attention, or at least, a logo having attention, to people with faces having attention, right? And whether it's creators or founders building in public. So you're really seeing that shift now. And I think that it's important for founders to realize that. And people want to follow your story and they want to connect with you because it's just, that's just what's kind of leading the charge right now. Do you agree, Kevin?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we're doing this right now. Well, one, it's do marketing for Launch Boom, but two, as you and I were discussing, is like we turn down 90+% of the people that's come through the door, right? Well, but they probably have friends that are also product creators, etc. Like, what can we do that scales well that can help them? Which is like just document stories like yours, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. And if it can help them, save one headache along the way, or, avoid even just one mistake, like that's a massive win for us. And they're probably going to refer us business later on. And I think that's one of the reasons why Launch Boom has frankly outlasted so many people that come and go in the crowdfunding space, because crowdfunding is really hard. It's just really, really hard. But because we started doing that like in 2013 when we launched our first campaign, all the creators that we spoke with back then have been referring us business right till now. So just having that like a longer term view, on your side as well as a product creator and, as like a service provider on our side, I think works really, 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 really well for all businesses, right? And actually that goes nicely with what's you were talking about, Gary Vee. So you referred to like the system that Gary Vee talks about, and you alluded to it or touched upon it in a few different angles, right? Building in public, talking to the community, being respectful of people, educating them, explaining to them why you could do it and why you couldn't do it, whatever they suggested. And no matter how arrogant they are, right? Just like acknowledging, everyone just wants to be loved at the end of the day, right? So helping them feel acknowledged. So what else is part of that system, and what is a piece of content from Gary Vee or a book that he's written like 10 plus books or something, right? I think jab, jab, right hook or something like that is one of the, ones that outlines the system. But which piece of content from him, or not from him for that matter, would you say like a product creator can go to as a point of reference for building a community and building in public?
That's a really good question. Gary Vee is great because he just says like the same 7 things over and over and over again. And that's why I love him, because he's very consistent with his messaging, and I'll just listen to him and I'll be like, yeah. It's like embedding itself deeper and deeper into my brain about just the value of content. I mean, he doesn't really give like I use the word blueprint, and he doesn't give like an actual blueprint, like step 1, do this, step 2, do this. He's just like, hey, build in public. The blueprint is don't create, document, right? And what that means is like, you don't need to come up with like some epic like piece of content for your TikTok today, right? It just needs to be like, you can like do that. Like if you are a very creatively minded person, you can put together a comedic skit that has the potential to go viral. Like, do that, right? I wish that I was better at that. I'm really not great at that as a content creator. But what anybody can do is take the phone, flip it, and say, "Hey guys, so today, we're working on this. We're looking to increase the shoulder strap padding, comfort a little bit. I wasn't too pleased with the actual the padding that we were using, and the double bonded Lycra new material just came in. Let me show you a little look at it, right? That's something that anybody can do. And that's what Gary Vee and a lot of content creators are preaching, is like, the reason why people don't get into creating content is they fear that there's a barrier, that creating content is difficult. And it can be if you're trying to be like that awesome TikTok skit creator, right? And like those people, they're my favorites. They're so freaking good at what they do, right? Creating content like Mr. Beast is really hard because each one of his videos costs millions of dollars to make. Don't compare yourself to that though. Don't try and be that level. Gary Vee and these other content creators are just saying, just flip that camera around and tell people what you're doing, and like, that's the whole concept of documenting. And that's what we're doing every day with Nomads Nation, my media company. And now with Fyro, is I'm just saying, hey guys, here's what's on the to-do list today. And it sounds like boring content, but honestly, people like that behind the scenes look. They want to feel connected with you. They want to know, oh, that's so interesting. I didn't realize that part actually went into this process. Because somebody who doesn't give a crap about backpacks might see one of my reels and be like, hard pass. And that's fine, because I'm not looking for that person. You have to look at content as a way to find your tribe. There's a saying by the dudes at Think Media: your vibe will dictate your tribe. And I love that, because you're not trying to please everyone. You're just trying to be you and find your niche, and whatever that is, people will find your content. These algorithms are very good at serving people content that they want. So just, flip that camera around. If you want to do YouTube, put it on horizontal and just talk about what you're building and hit upload. I mean, I know a lot of people have that barrier with content creation where it's like they think that has to be like so produced, and they need the $10,000 camera and all these things. I mean, you don't, you really don't, at least to start with, right? Like, I mean, prove to yourself that you can make the content first and just start putting it out there. So I think that's the blueprint. As Gary Vee's like, you don't need a studio, you don't need a content plan, you don't need a world-class editor, you just need a cell phone, a little bit of courage, and then just start documenting. And slowly but surely, it will grow, and you will grow as a content creator as well. And that's the best part. Like, if you look at my videos 2 years ago, they were not that good. If you look at the first Building a Backpack episode, that's the documentary series that we named it, it was garbage, dude. I'm like standing and like presenting, and I'm like all stiff and like, we're gonna talk about costs today. And then I watched it a couple months later, I'm like, this is trash, but like, it's all a part of the learning experience. It's why Joe Rogan, although he's done thousands of podcast episodes, he always leaves his first episodes. He's like, they're absolutely terrible, and you can go look at them anytime, because I want you to realize that you only get better as you put the reps in, right? So like, our first episode of Building a Backpack was not good. Second one a bit better. Third one better. So on and so on. As for our last 2 or 3, I'm really proud of them. So yeah, I guess in a roundabout way to answer your question, Kevin, is just the blueprint is document, don't create, and just kind of document the process, because people want that behind the scenes look.
Beautiful, and don't hesitate too, right? I think that's like a huge thing that he talks about, the barrier that people have in their minds, that own mountain that they put in front of themselves, like getting the studio, getting the $10,000 camera. No, you don't need any of that stuff. Don't put that barrier in front of you. And I would say the same thing, Aaron, applies to product creation, right? Like, I don't know if you've seen like the TED Talk.
Great transition.
Yes, thank you, appreciate that. The TED Talk about rapid prototyping for the Google Glass. I mean, they started out in 2 hours putting something together to see, okay, like how much weight can you put on your nose bridge, etc. Right? Okay, then that's the maximum battery life that we can handle, etc. And then they figured out where to put the cameras and battery and stuff, like very, very quickly using that rapid prototype. And I would say for product creators, same thing. Whether you have money or not, whether you have launch boom or not, whether you have 2 years or 10 years, actually, in your case, of media building or not, like, you just gotta remove that hesitation and whatever obstacle you're putting in front of yourself, and just like do the prototype, shoot something on a cell phone video, and throw it out there. And funny thing is, the best performing ads of a lot of our clients are cell phone videos. Right. And I'm sure you've seen some of that yourself as well, Aaron. Can you talk a little bit more about any comments on that? And then I want to hear a little bit about your best performing ads as well.
Yeah, I think that what you said was a perfect way to sort of tie the whole authenticity, content creation, document thing, just tie it all together, because like you said, back in the day, the best performing ads, on YouTube and on Meta and stuff, were, these highly produced ads, epic sort of production. But now the selfie cell phone ones are doing the best. And that's because there's been this whole sort of pendulum swing in the content world, where when Instagram got big and it got big, right? And it just got like, it was so cool at first, Instagram, but then over the years, it kind of just felt faker and more filtered and more produced and less intimate. And like, is this your real life? You know, it just felt like everyone was doing a PR campaign for their own lives, that there was no actual authenticity there, right? Everyone's doing the fucking shot of the beach, looking over the sunset with the cocktail, showing how awesome their lives is. And that's why, the pendulum kept swinging in that direction. And then TikTok just went the opposite direction. Crappy videos, people are on their mics on their headphones with green screens and stuff, but it just felt more raw and more cool. And that's where the pendulum has swung back that way, as to where content is now. It doesn't need to look like a Super Bowl commercial. It just needs to be a connection point where you're really just showing people who you are, and that will end up dictating your tribe and your following because of it. So yeah, and then on the product side, just to go onto that, there's always barriers, right? The good thing about content is that you can make content with $0. Like, you just need a phone. You already have a phone. You already have Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. You can make content. You can edit it for free on CapCut. There's literally a whole stack of tools that you can use that are all free that you can make content with. And that's what's great about content. So if you're in a position where, maybe you're struggling a bit financially and you think you need an investor, I'm not sure what your product is, and there might be some people who, do need a decent financial backing to make a certain product, but, a lot of these things can just be built by yourself. And if it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to build something because you don't have the financial backing, why not start documenting that process right now? Because by the time you launch, whether it's 3 years or 5 years or 6 years, you will have a community in place. You're not starting from zero. You're starting with a community on day one. And you can see by what happened with our launch, I am so happy that we started with the community on day one versus having to build a community starting right now. Like, that sounds, and we're in a position too, I'm sure you guys know this, Kevin, meta ads are tough. Like, we're in a really tough spot right now with customer acquisition costs and with, cost per mile and all this. So, the better community you can have in place from day one, the better position that you'll be in. Would you agree, Kevin?
Absolutely. I mean, the funny thing too is, I raised private capital as well, right? When I was launching my last business. And I mean, so much stuff that you talked about, like, I made that mistake that you're talking about. That's why I talk about it so passionately as well. Like what you were talking about earlier, like if you asked someone what they wanted, they would just tell you a faster horse. Like when I made my first product, it was a desktop aquarium that uses plants to filter aquarium water, so you don't have to change the filters of the aquarium water, right? And
that sounds dope.
People said, hey, I want like automated feeders so that I don't actually even have to feed the fish, etc. Well, what they actually wanted was just more plants, actually, and like more automation and less like, and so they didn't even really care about the fish. And so our second iteration of it, which blew up and became our bestseller, was a desktop greenhouse that used, plants to help improve air quality. But
oh, cool!
It was, me listening, but then also trying to figure out, okay, reading in between the lines, what does the customer actually want?
100%.
They just wanted more nature and greenery indoors. To your point of investors, that's a mistake that I've made and I've seen a lot of people, product creators, make as well. Yeah, if you're building a Tesla or a SpaceX, you absolutely need investment before you go ahead and prototype, etc. But most other physical products, sophisticated investors are going to laugh at you if you just say, here's my idea, invest in it, or here's my prototype, invest in it. Because if you are unable to put your money where your mouth is and spend a couple $100 on content, cell phone videos, $20 on an advertisement, etc., to get in front of 1,000 people or 500 people and get some like opt-ins or feedback in your case or comments to show investors data points that the customers actually want what you're building, I mean, then you're just like everyone else out there asking them for money. And what is going to make you stand out? The answer is nothing. So I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you see Shark Tank, like, they'll come on, a certain person and pitch and be like, we're seeking $300,000 for 5% in our company. And then Mark Cuban's like, all right, let's see what this is. I'm excited. That's a bold ask. So this must be a great freaking product. They're like, we've had $500 in sales and we project next year we'll hit $5 million. It's like, you got to be realistic about this as to where, if you're looking for capital, well, I would say, anybody who's listening out there is you might. I'm good on the marketing side of things. That's where I've sort of built my skill set, and I'm having to learn more the operational and product side of things. So anybody out there who is looking to learn more about that and the marketing side as well, you should listen to the Operators podcast. Have you heard of the Operators podcast, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's so freaking good. I'm learning so much. This is my first foray into e-commerce, but what's really interesting too, though, just on that note of like investing, is they talk about like it's a podcast with 4 of the biggest names in e-commerce, billion-dollar companies. The guys from Ridge, Hexclad, Simple Modern. I mean, you worked with Lomi, didn't you guys?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So one of the guys on the Operators podcast is the owner of Lomi, who you guys blew it out of the water with on Kickstarter, right?
That's how I learned about podcasts, actually.
There you go. That makes sense. Yeah. But what I was getting at is it's a great podcast, but one recurring element that they bring up, because it's an e-commerce focused podcast, is the best e-commerce companies are bootstrapped, like through and through. You know, like, I mean, there's some that have gotten investments. Don't get me wrong, right? There's always exceptions to the rule, but like, if you're looking at this modern day and age, the ones that do well are the ones from their perspective, from their experience, the ones that are bootstrapped. They didn't find the investment. They figured out how to make it work. They figured out day one profitability, and they scaled from there, slowly but surely, in a way that they had, consistent cash flow and, did all that. And it's funny because like they talk about like a lot of those e-commerce brands that were like the poster child, the Allbirds, the ones that seem to blow up out of nowhere, right? But Allbirds, it peaked and then it's back down. I think all their retail stores closed down, so I would just heed, like, I think that there's an old school mentality that, to run a business, I need an investor. And I just think that business model is very outdated, especially with e-commerce in these days, as to where you can get a Shopify site up and running so cheaply. You can get crowdsourcing to replace an investor, as long as you're telling a compelling story, you have a compelling product. And, that's the blueprint that these companies are taking to really scale up, as opposed to the old school, thing of like, I need a Mark Cuban to back this. Otherwise, yeah. So I don't know though. Like, I mean, do you think that there's still a place for investment in e-commerce, Kevin, or is it, is it more the bootstrap model that's working?
Well, that's a very broad question. I think it's case by case, right? But I do think most people sort of in your shoes and in my shoes where I was in terms of product development, et cetera, don't need investments or very much investment at all, right? And if you are asking investors for money, you should be able to put up a couple $1,000s for your own money before investors invest. Like, if you aren't able to do that, investors should not be putting in money in your business either, So
for sure,
that's my thought on it. And then once, you get to a certain stage, taking investments can make sense, right? But you also have options at that point too. When you have even a little bit of sales, I mean, you'd be surprised on how much access to lines of credit that people can get, right? Like debts, good debts,
sure,
right? You use it to buy inventory, you sell the inventory for 3-4 times the cost of more sometimes the cost of the product, and then you pay whatever 8 to 12%, whatever the interest rate is now, right? 8-12% sounds like a lot, but you just 4x your money. So it's not that much, right? It's much better than giving away pieces of your business. So I think there's a sweet spot in between. I think it just really depends on the scenario. But I think people that don't move their product forward or their company forward because they're waiting on investments or they're looking for investors, I think that's a flawed ideology.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways it's driven by maybe fear in some ways, where it's like, oh, well, I can't do this because I don't have an investor, when in reality, there's a lot of products that could be made, for pretty cheap, and it might take 5 years, right? It might take long, maybe you can in 5 months with an investor and it takes 3 years to do it yourself. It's going to be so much more rewarding when you do it yourself in that sense, right? As opposed to just using maybe an excuse for some, just to never actually take that first step.
Yeah. I mean, using you as an example, people look at your $374,000 campaign and go, oh my gosh, in 2.5 weeks, $374,000. But that was 10 years in the making, Aaron. Literally, 10 years ago, you started the site, 5 years ago, the YouTube channel, 2 years ago, the product, and now. So I think, but it's because you started, right? You took action and you removed at least some, if not all of those mental barriers that's you probably, I mean, we all had at some points.
Yeah, I think that for anybody who's looking to sort of dip their toes into the entrepreneurial world, the best piece of action is just get started, because what you think is going to happen might happen, but it also might not. Like, I started my entrepreneurial journey 10 years ago with the goal of being the world's most famous travel writer. That was it. I wanted to travel to distant lands and write about the sunsets in Nigeria, and that's what I was obsessed with traveling, and I've always been a copywriter, so that's what I wanted, and that did not work out. But then that led me to internet marketing, and I started doing SEO, and that led me to YouTube and like backpacks. And now I never thought I would have a backpack company 10 years ago. So I think that, if you look at any entrepreneurial journey, rarely do you end up exactly where you think that you started. Rarely do you end up where you think you're going to end up. It's a journey, and one thing always leads you to the next thing. And I could not be more thrilled about where I am right now. But it never would have happened if I didn't take that first jump and then sort of got my unique path from there. So I think that, the takeaway is if you just get started, and then see where your journey takes you, and then document it, because people want to follow that journey.
Yeah. I mean, similar windy path as well, Aaron. I mean, I started when I was in college. I was just building aquariums for people, right? And the idea was, hey, this company is already selling these LED lights. Why don't I package a aquaponics aquarium that filters water with plants with their LED lights and sell it, and I'll license it to them, and that'll be like a stream of income. And then it led to the first Kickstarter campaign, and then led to the second one and the third one. And then all of a sudden I had this, business, and then now, I work for Launch Boom, helping other people do that. But 10 years ago, I would have never thought I'm in this spot either. So I like that. I love that, Aaron, that, just take action first. You never know where it's going to lead you. Only looking back do the dots connect well, right?
Well said.
What advice would you give yourself? So we connected February of 2023. Right now we are in May of 2024, right? You've done a lot. You've learned a lot in the process. What advice would you give yourself February 13th, specifically? I have the date right here, February 13th of 2023, like about the product launch, product developments, crowdfunding, etc., that you think would have made the entire process that much smoother or easier?
I would have made more content, because there was some days where I'd be like, how do I know this is working? Maybe I won't make as much content today. So I would have tripled down and made even more freaking content. That's for sure, because that's proven to work pretty well. I guess that I don't know. I guess that my struggles right now are more based around like learning logistics, shipping, and freight forwarding and all that. So maybe I would have brushed up on this a little bit more before actually starting the campaign. But for me, I knew that I wanted to go full steam ahead with just as much marketing and momentum as I could from that perspective. But maybe I'm learning about duties paid, duties unpaid. So I guess that maybe educating myself a bit more on that, because we're just trying to figure out shipping policies. A backpack's a big old box, and it's not about the actual weight, but it's the volume weight. So I guess that on that perspective, starting a company is such a journey, in the sense that you're going to learn things that you never want to learn, but you gotta, I don't care about shipping, Kevin. I don't care about it, but I gotta learn it. So like I guess the things that maybe I put off a little bit, that I maybe would have gotten a little bit of a head start on. But we're getting there for sure with our campaign. I'm learning as we go, but I've got some really good logistics partners that are helping with that. And no, that's a really good question. What are some things that you guys see like as a tendency for people to wish that they would have done a little bit differently or better?
I think we talked a lot about some of those things, right? It's just like taking action. Like whatever you can do that, right? Show traction, right? Get the product in front of customers, create lots of contents, put your own money where your mouth is, right? And talk to customers. I think those are the main things that I see people wait too long or do too little of, I would say.
For sure.
This is the last question for you, and then we can start wrapping up here. Last couple questions, I'll put it that way. So I mean, there's a lot of naysayers, right? And it's a long, arduous journey. You were, I mean, to put it bluntly, failing for 5 years before you start the YouTube channel, right?
Very much so.
Do you have any routines or habits that like keep you a little bit more even keeled as you're going through that really rough entrepreneurial journey that with lots of ups and downs? And I'm sure there were days you felt like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? This is actually going to work.
I hate to go back to freaking Gary Vee, but it's what he says, and it's so true. You got to do something that you love, because if you love it, it doesn't feel like work the whole time, you know? And on those hard times, like, you're just going to want to push through, like, versus like, you know, like, I'm not going to lie. Like, when the crypto thing was happening, I'm like, shit, should I be pivoting? Should I be a crypto guy, you know? And then, you know, I was like, kind of like, I don't care about this. Like, I like what I like. So if you're building a product, or you're building a side hustle, or you're building a YouTube channel, the quickest way to self-destruction is to follow a quick buck, right? To try and follow a trend. Don't get me wrong, you can make money doing that, and that works for some people. But for a lot of us, this is a longer road, and you have to just accept that that's the rules that we're playing with, especially if you're trying to build from the ground up by yourself and you're bootstrapped and you're self-funded. So if you don't freaking love what you do, then those tough days are impossible. But if you love what you do, then those tough days are bearable at worst, you know? And then those every other day is just awesome because you love it. Like when I started the YouTube channel 4 years ago, we didn't make a penny on it for 6 months, I think. And I was working at a marketing agency at that time, and I was taking a portion of my salary to pay a video editor, you know, and like, I didn't know what was going to happen, but God, and I worked every Saturday to shoot the YouTube videos, right? So I was 6 days a week, 60, 70 hours a week, but I love shooting the videos. Like, I learned that I like being on camera and talking about backpacks. So those working Saturdays were kind of easy for me, because I enjoyed the process so much. So if you're here, you're probably trying to build a product, and I hope that it's a product, or I recommend maybe making it a product that you actually enjoy building, less so something that you think might be in trend and you can make a quick buck off of. I love backpacks. I dream about my backpack. I dream about the next backpack. So I would say, because I'm so passionate about it, it just makes it not feel like work half the time. And that's what gets you through the hard times.
But how do you bear the hard times? Like, is there like a habits or a routine that you follow, someone that you call or talk to? What do you fall back on?
On the hard times, just enjoying. That's a really good question. I'm not really sure. I guess that I try to enjoy the journey as much as I can, because if you enjoy the journey, then you accept that the rough times are a part of it, right? So like, if that's your mentality, then there's no real rough times. It's just the journey, right? There's always rough times, right? Like when there's times where money's bad or the economy's shit, or, you know, like I had a travel blog, a different travel blog, and it was doing pretty well. You know, pulling like $5-6 a month, you know, all through SEO, you know, I've been learning over the years. And then COVID happened, dude, overnight, that source of income, dead. Gone. And I had to get a freaking job. I was self-employed for 2 years. I was living the digital nomad dream, and then I had to get a job at a marketing agency. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty bummed out about that. And you know, during COVID for 1.5 years, and while I started the YouTube channel, I was working at this marketing agency. But I guess I just try to focus on mentality as often as I can. My mom, when we were young, made us wear these little bracelets, these no complaint bracelets, and just the mentality of like, don't complain, and like, everything is an opportunity. And like, while I was initially upset that I had to get a job at this marketing agency, God, I learned so much there. And I got a job as head of content, and I learned so much about running a team, systems, operations. It was like CEO boot camp for me. And I could not even imagine where I am now without that experience. So I guess that it's just remembering that this is all a journey, and it's all going to pay off in the end, in some capacity, probably a capacity that you don't think, that you're not expecting or predicting. But if you can try and flip that mentality as to where, you know, hey, times are tough and I got to get a job, I'm going to learn so much from this experience. And if you can try and keep that mentality, I've found that usually works for me. That and the occasional glass of whiskey.
That helps, I'm sure. That's awesome.
It doesn't hurt. Yeah, it doesn't hurt. It's a balance, but a little Jameson every now and then also helps take the edge off.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about, all the dots connect. Looking back, right? It was from Steve Jobs' commencement speech. So, but you never know when you're in the middle of it. Like when you first took that marketing job.
No, but if you can try and keep that perspective, it's really hard. But if you can try and keep that perspective, that mentality shift can be very powerful in my experience.
Wonderful. Well, Aaron, it's been fantastic having you on. I really appreciate your time and all of the knowledge, trials, tribulations, all the stuff that have worked for you. I think if, someone listening to this can even avoid one mistake that's, on the funding side or prototyping, all the stuff that we talked about, just the mindset shift side, I think that would pay incredible dividends and would make it incredibly fulfilling for both of us. So is there, where can people find Fyro and connect with you?
Yeah, you can connect with me either with Fyro, which we have a new YouTube channel, which is just Fyro. You can find us there. And then you can find us on our larger YouTube channel, which is Nomads Nation. That's Nomads, nomads like nomadic, and then Nation. And swing by either of those places. I respond to every single comment on our channel. So if you comment, I will reply. I'll say hi. And if you got any questions about backpacks, I'm your guy.
Amazing, amazing. Any last requests or asks of the listeners or watchers?
Just go. Take action. Action solves everything. And you don't know where it's going to lead you, but, when you're, just action. It solves everything. It really does. So that's it. That's all I got.
Very good. Thank you again, Aaron. Pleasure having you.
Thanks, Kevin. Take it easy.